This is the entrance to the cemetery that I used at Limburg an der Lahn. I came here looking for a certain grave. I have looked for many graves in many cemeteries. I have never found one so easily without a map. This was the very first grave I came to, and I recognized it because I knew what it looked like. Let's go and see whose grave it is. So we can see this is the grave of a couple, and there we have the name Heinz Wolf, who according to this was at the time of this was put up here, honorary citizen of Limburg, born on the 3rd of March 1908, died on the 1st of October 1984. His wife, Ria, was born in 1914, 5th of September 1914. She died the 9th of December 2012. So she was 98 years old, and she was a widow for a very long time, so for 38 years. Heinz Wolf was a Nazi murderer, and the time that this grave went up, his Nazi past was not known, and I have to make that very clear. It is due to largely journalists and indeed politicians belonging to a Linke party who brought this out into the open. He was a lawyer who went to occupied Danzig, and there he took part in a number of, as member, a prosecutor working on one of the special courts, Nazi pseudo-justice. He was responsible for around 300 death sentences, people who certainly were not guilty of crimes. His boss, Kurt Bode, was the person who sentenced to death the defenders of the Gdansk post office, which was attacked on the 1st of September 1939, and it was theoretically Polish territory at the time it was attacked. The defenders were accused as being terrorists, which is absolutely absurd under either German law or the law of the Free City of Danzig. They were sentenced to death. The death sentence didn't exist in the Free City of Danzig, and they were shot. Wolf played his part in that. He managed, however, to get away. He got a posting to Traunstein in 1944, which was effectively a demotion. But Traunstein was well out of the way. There were much fewer cases of political cases. Traunstein is in southeastern Bavaria. You can pass through it if you're on your way to Salzburg, for example, or to maybe not so much Salzburg, but more where Hitler was born. And this may seem like a demotion, but I think he was thinking ahead. Danzig was captured in March of 1945. His boss had to go into the army, served as a lieutenant. He was captured, and he ended up coming back to Germany. I can't quite remember when it was now, even though I did a video on him. I think it was 1949, and it was Vulf who gave his former boss Bode a reference, and so he entered into the post-war German judicial system. Now, let's have a walk around. One thing I have to make very, very clear is that when the basic law of West Germany came into operation, as in from 1949, the people who did this were largely victims of the Nazis themselves, and what they tried to do was to put the past behind them, to turn over a new leaf. That it's the past, and let the past be the past. We've got to go forward, and I think there's a lot to be said, which is admirable in this type of action. But what they couldn't do is foresee, I think, the amount of Nazis that entered the judicial system. Indeed, a very large number of judges had been brought up in the Nazi system, and they had sympathies to a certain extent with it. And whereas many of them were careerists, they did it for a career. I mean, if the communists had taken over in Germany in 1933, they'd have done the same for the communists. Of that, I don't think there can be any doubt whatsoever. Careerists, that's what they were. Their careers mattered more to them. I've seen this in Poland, the way that former communists then became on the extreme right. It's just a matter of blowing with the wind, or moving with the wind. In the case of Wolf, he had a very good career, particularly in this town here. The sports hall was even named after him. He became an honorary citizen. He was head of the judges' organisation for Hesse. So he did ultra well out of the system. Now, in 1959, there was a very famous case, which I've done quite a long video on, that of Marie-Luise Nitribitt, who was a prosecutor in Frankfurt, and she was murdered. Now, she had a lot of clients who were very well known, and one of them, assuming that he was a client, I mean, I don't know, I mean, might have been a friend, I don't know. But one person who was linked to her was a member of the Krupp family, and he had spent 11 years, or more than 11 years in fact, in Soviet captivity. And they knew who he was, and he was badly treated. So he comes back to Germany, and I can understand that he might have been grateful for a bit of company. The person who might have done it lived in, he was a car business. He was from Munich. And I need to point out that he is innocent, because the court found him innocent of the murder, just as O.J. Simpson is innocent because the court found him not guilty of the of 2 murders. What is strange about everything, that Wolf allowed the case of Marie-Luise Nitribitt to be sort of covered up. And anyway, I've done videos on it, so I'll give you links to them. Now, his past, though, came out into the open, and I'm glad to say that whilst his wife was still alive, that was known. There was a sports hall named after him. I was going there and film it, but it's more than 5 kilometres there, so 5 there, 5 back, and then my vehicle's parked the other side of town, so I don't think I'll bother. But the sports hall named after him, the name was changed, and so it became the sports. I'll just looked it up on the map now, and it's named after somebody else, but it did take his name. So I think of the victims of Nazism, and we see people around us here. Many of them went through 12 years of Nazism, and what they went through, and the suffering of these people. And I think it's when we see somebody like Vulf, who got this honorary citizenship, and the sports hall named after him, what about the victims? The victims, for example, in the free city of Gdansk, of Danzig, were both Germans and Poles, and the German-speaking population ended up having to leave, were forced out, and they ended up in places like this. And there was one lady who had a relative who was a victim. My thought goes to people like her, and I'm sad to think that he wasn't, in his own time, prosecuted for his crimes, but at least his wife lived long enough to see the end of his crimes being exposed for what they were. 300 people effectively murdered in the free city of Gdansk during the Second World War by this character here. And that is something I find particularly disgusting. Why? And that's why I'm here now, to actually point this out. And also to point out, it is thanks to the press in Germany and progressive politicians, even though I mightn't agree with them on other things, that brought this to light. Because whereas the lawyers and the legal system in the immediate post-war period may have been pro-Nazi, the press wasn't. And thanks to even major magazines such as Stern or Spiegel and others, journalists were happy to point out investigate the past of others, such as this character here. Anyway, done videos on him. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.